Welcome back to English Flow. I want to start today with a question that I think a lot of you are dealing with right now. You've been studying English for a while, maybe 1 year, maybe 3, maybe more. You can read articles, you can write emails, you can understand your textbook perfectly. But then you watch a real TV show or you listen to a native speaker talking at normal speed, and suddenly, nothing. It's like they're speaking a completely different language. If that's your experience, you're not failing at English. You're running into one of the most common and frustrating gaps in language learning. And that gap has a name. It's called the difference between studied English and real English. Today, we're going to close that gap. Not completely, not today, but we're going to take a serious step forward together. So stay with me. This episode is going to give you real, usable practice. We're going to talk about why natural English sounds so different, and then we're going to work through it together, step by step. Let's start with the problem itself, because understanding it is half the solution. When you learn English in a classroom or from a textbook, you hear very clean, carefully spoken language. Every word is pronounced fully, every sentence has a clear beginning and end. The speaker pauses in the right places. It's almost artificial, and that's intentional because it helps beginners get started. But when real people talk, native speakers or fluent speakers in natural conversation, they don't speak like that. They connect words together, they drop sounds, they use contractions you've never seen written down. They speak at a pace that doesn't wait for you to process anything. Let me give you some specific examples, because this is important.
The phrase, "do you want to," in careful speech, you hear all 5 words clearly. But in real conversation, people say, "do you wanna?" Those 5 words become 2 sounds. If you've only ever heard the careful version, the natural version doesn't even register as the same phrase. I am going to becomes I'm gonna. Give me becomes gimme. Let me becomes lemme. Kind of becomes kinda. A lot of becomes a lotta. These aren't slang, these aren't mistakes. This is how English actually sounds when people are comfortable and speaking naturally. And if your listening practice has only ever included the careful, clean version, real speech will always feel too fast, too messy, and too difficult. So, the first thing I want you to understand is this. The problem isn't your level, the problem is your input. You've been training your ear on one type of English, and now you're being tested on a completely different one. Now let's talk about what to do about it. The first thing, and I want you to really take this seriously, is to change what you listen to. If you're at B1 or B2 level and you're still using listening materials made for learners, you're not going to grow fast enough. You need real content, not simplified, not slowed down, real. Now, I know that feels scary. You'll understand less at first, maybe a lot less. But this is actually the most important stage of listening development, the stage where you sit with discomfort and keep listening anyway. Your brain needs repeated exposure to natural speech patterns before it can start to decode them automatically. And that process cannot happen if you're always listening to controlled, learner-friendly audio.
So, what kind of real content should you choose? This is where I see a lot of learners make a second mistake. They jump straight to fast-talking native speakers, complex documentaries, or shows with heavy regional accents and a lot of slang. That's too big a jump. You want content that is real, but accessible. A few good starting points: interview podcasts where people speak conversationally, YouTube videos by clear speakers on topics you already know something about, or TV dramas with subtitles available. Not cartoons, not comedy panel shows, not reality TV, which tends to be chaotic and very hard to follow. The topic matters too. If you're listening to something you already understand conceptually, your brain has context clues to help fill in the words you miss. If you're listening to something completely unfamiliar, you're fighting two battles at once, the language and the content. Start with familiar topics. The second strategy is something called intensive listening, and it's different from just playing audio in the background while you do something else. Background listening has some value, but it's passive. Intensive listening means you sit down with a short piece of audio, 2 to 4 minutes is enough, and you work through it deliberately. Here's how to do it. First, listen once without stopping. Don't look at a transcript, just listen and try to get the general meaning. What is the topic? What is the speaker's attitude? What do you understand and what feels unclear?
Then listen again, this time stopping whenever you miss something. Rewind. Listen to that section 2, 3, 4 times. Try to hear exactly what was said before you look it up. This is the key moment, the moment where your ear is actually training itself. If you jump to the transcript too early, you skip that training. After you've done your best, read the transcript and check. Find the words or phrases you missed. Then, and this is the step most people skip, listen again while reading. This connects the sound to the text in your brain. And finally, listen one more time without reading. See how much more you catch now. This process with a 2-minute audio clip can take 20 minutes. That's not too slow. That's how listening actually improves. Now, here's something that doesn't get talked about enough at B1, B2 level: intonation and stress. In English, the way something is said often changes the meaning as much as the words themselves. Consider this sentence. I didn't say she took the money. 7 words, but depending on which word you stress, the meaning changes completely. I didn't say she took the money. Someone else said it, not me. I didn't say she took the money. I never said that. I didn't say she took the money. Maybe I implied it, but I didn't say it. I didn't say she took the money. Maybe someone else took it. Same 7 words, 4 different meanings. This is why listening in English requires you to pay attention not just to vocabulary, but to music, the rise and fall of the voice, the words that get emphasis, the pauses that signal something important. Start noticing this when you listen. Ask yourself, which word did the speaker stress? Why? What does that tell me about what they really mean? Let me pause here and ask you something because I'm curious. When you listen to real English, a podcast, a show, a video, do you usually understand the general topic but miss the details? Or do you feel completely lost from the beginning? These are 2 very different problems, and they need different solutions. Write your answer in the comments. It genuinely helps me understand what you need, and it might help other listeners who are in the same situation as you. The third strategy I want to give you today is about building what I call a sound vocabulary, which is different from a word vocabulary. You probably already know thousands of English words when you see them written, but do you recognize them when you hear them at natural speed? Often the answer is no, because you've only ever encountered them in reading, never in listening. So the word exists in your brain as a visual object, not a sound. The solution is deliberate audio exposure to vocabulary you already know. This sounds simple, but it's powerful. Take a word you know, let's say comfortable. You know what it means, but how does it sound in fast speech? Most learners say comfortable, 4 syllables, equally stressed, but native speakers almost always say comfortable, 3 syllables, with the middle syllable nearly disappearing. If you've never heard that, you might not recognize the word when someone says it naturally. This happens with hundreds of common words. Different becomes different. Every becomes every. Vegetable becomes vegetable. Interesting becomes interesting.
The written form and the spoken form are genuinely different objects, and your brain needs to connect them. So, one useful exercise. Take 20 words you already know from reading, look them up in a dictionary that includes audio pronunciation, and listen carefully. Then find those words being used in real speech, in a podcast or a video. Notice the difference between the careful dictionary pronunciation and the natural, connected version. Now, I want to give you a learning moment, something specific you can take away and use today. We're going to look at a very common feature of natural English speech called weak forms. This is something that textbooks rarely teach, but it explains a huge amount of why real speech sounds so fast and difficult to follow. In English, certain very common words like and, to, of, for, from, can, that, at, but, have two pronunciations, a strong form, which is how they sound in isolation or when they're being emphasized, and a weak form, which is how they actually sound in the middle of natural speech. Let me show you. The word and, its strong form sounds like and, but in natural speech, it almost always becomes just a small sound, something like or even just n. So, bread and butter doesn't sound like bread and butter, it sounds like bread and butter, almost as one word. The word to, strong form is to, but in natural speech, before a consonant, it becomes t. I want to go sounds like I wanna to go. Before a vowel, it sometimes becomes t still, or links directly to the next word. The word for, strong form rhymes with door. Weak form sounds like f. I did it for you sounds like I did it for you. Can, strong form rhymes with man. Weak form sounds like kn, barely a vowel at all. I can do it sounds like I can do it. Compare that to I can't do it, where can't is stressed and clearly pronounced, and you can hear why learners confuse can and can't so often. It's not your fault. The difference is real and it's subtle. Once you know about weak forms, you start hearing them everywhere. And once you hear them, your listening comprehension jumps, not because your vocabulary grew, but because you finally understand the sound system you were missing. Let's talk about something practical now. How do you actually build a listening habit that works? The mistake most learners make is inconsistency. They do 2 hours of listening practice one day, then nothing for a week. This doesn't work for language acquisition. Your brain learns language through repeated, spaced exposure, small amounts, regularly, over time. 20 minutes every day is dramatically more effective than 2 hours once a week. So here's a simple structure you can start this week. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, intensive listening. Pick a short clip, 2 to 4 minutes, and work through it the way I described earlier. Full attention, no distractions, transcript available for checking, but not for the first pass. Tuesday, Thursday, passive but engaged listening. Put on a podcast or a show you enjoy in English. Don't study it, just listen. Let the language wash over you. Notice things when they catch your attention, but don't force it.
Weekend. Choose one longer piece of content. A 20-minute documentary, a full podcast episode, a longer YouTube video. Watch or listen without stopping. Measure yourself not by how much you understood perfectly, but by how much more you understood compared to last month. If you follow this structure for 6 weeks, you will hear a difference. Not because I'm promising you magic results, but because this is how listening acquisition actually works, and you'll be doing it correctly. I want to ask you one more thing before we close, and I want you to think about this genuinely, not just give me a quick answer. What is one specific situation in your real life where better English listening would make a difference? A job interview, a meeting at work, traveling, understanding a course or lecture in English? watching your favorite show without subtitles? Write that situation in the comments, because when your practice is connected to a real goal, something you actually want, you practice differently. You practice with more focus, more patience, and more motivation, and that matters more than any technique I can give you. So let's bring today's episode together. Real English sounds different from studied English, and that's not a flaw in you, it's a gap in your input. The solution is to change what you listen to, how you listen to it, and how consistently you do it.
Use intensive listening to train your ear deliberately. Pay attention to stress and intonation, the music of the language. Build a sound vocabulary, not just a written one. Learn how weak forms work because they're hiding in almost every sentence you hear. And make listening a daily habit, not an occasional event. None of this is fast. None of it is a shortcut. But every single one of these things works if you actually do them. You're at B1 or B2 level. That means you've already done a lot of hard work to get here. Don't stop now. The gap between where you are and where you want to be is real, but it is absolutely crossable. Keep listening, keep pushing, and keep showing up. Thank you for spending this time with English Flow today. If this episode gave you something useful, please like the video. It genuinely helps other learners at your level find this content. And if you're not subscribed yet, now is a good time. New episodes come regularly, and every one of them is built to help you make real, measurable progress. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, everyone.